Aloha, and welcome to another exciting episode of Mr. Mendo's Hack Attack. I'm, of course, your fantabulous host, the man who shot Liberty Valance, Mr. Mendo. You know, I was having a really hard time coming up with something to do for this episode. Total mental block, man. So, I did what I always do in times of stress. I turned to the good people at debrief.commanderbond.net.
I shall assume that Mendo is a character. Or rather, a caricature. He can't really be such an asshat that he would sincerely pan a movie like It's a Wonderful Life. I can't wait to hear his critical comments about how bad Citizen Kane is.
That is a great idea! I could so make an episode about Citizen Kane. Of course, by Citizen Kane, I mean Forrest Gump.
Ah, Forrest Gump. From a filmmaking standpoint, it's a real achievement. Beautifully shot, acting is okay for the most part, and it leaves the viewer with the idea that one person can make a difference, and even the most inconsequential life can have a positive effect on the world. Well, as long as you're a politically neutral, brain-dead, conservative white guy who always does what he's told and never questions anything.
Wait, what?
Yes, much like the completely unnecessary feather that bookends the film, the message here is that it's wrong to have any direction in life, or to make plans, or even have a personality, and only by floating aimlessly through the void do we end up someplace nice.
This movie is basically summed up by that one line that everybody knows.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Hey, jackass. You know that label that's on everything you buy at the grocery store? It tells you what's in it. But I guess you're right. This movie really is like a box of chocolates. It's gooey and disgusting, and at the end of the day you want your money back.
Back when it came out, it was the 4th highest grossing film ever, so you're familiar with the story, yeah? Forrest Gump is a kid with screwed up legs and a low IQ, as revealed on this handy chart.
Forrest is right here.
Sally Field is his mom, who sleeps with a school official to keep him from riding the short bus. There, he meets Jenny, who inspires him to run, causing his legs to magically heal themselves. Forrest ends up a star football player in college. Then he goes off to Vietnam, where he meets a black guy with a swollen lip, and saves Gary Sinise after he gets his leg blown off by Charlie. The whole time, Forrest pines for Jenny, while meeting various presidents and rock stars, most of whom would later be assassinated and... You know what? Screw it. Everybody knows all this already.
So let's cut right through the crap and get to the faults. In list form even. This is the top 7 things that are wrong with Forrest Gump.
I don't know why this pisses me off so much, but it does. This is a movie with violent battle scenes, hookers, attempted suicide, and a whole lot of people getting shot. And this is what they open with. This is like opening Kindergarten Cop with 2 cartoon alligators playing Jenga. It has nothing to do with anything. They may as well have used this.
We're tiny, we're toony, we're all a little loony.
This wouldn't bother me so much, except they make such a big deal out of it. This sequence goes on for 2 whole minutes before we get to the story. Speaking of which, think about this for a second. How does Forrest sitting on a bus bench telling a story contribute anything more than just having him narrate from off-screen would? It takes us out of the story. The whole time, I'm just wondering how this bus company stays in business if it's going to take them this long to pick people up.
I mean, it would take me about 20 minutes just to tell you about the time that I bought Ghost World on DVD from Circuit City. To tell my life story, we're looking at like 3 weeks minimum. And you're telling me that the bus only stops like 4 or 5 times the entire time I'm there? How the hell does this company stay in business?
And he keeps telling his story, even though the people he's talking to get up and leave. Just look at the very first person he speaks to. She couldn't be any less interested, but he just keeps going. If you ask me, this scene should have gone a little differently. Hey, do you want to hear my life story? Ah, hell no!
Now that's a movie I'd watch.
If you're going to San Francisco.
For years, we've been tortured with movies that act like history started in the late 50s and that nothing of any interest happened after 1981. Movies that hit every cliche of the 60s social revolution, as if that was the entire story of the 20th century. But Forrest Gump really goes the extra mile, cleaning up history and removing all traces of ugliness. Even segregation is treated as wholesome entertainment, fun for the whole family. Basically, this is the Disney theme park version of the 60s and 70s, and nothing about it is the least bit authentic. Sadly, we're still enduring crappy movies that worship the baby boomer era. I mean, Across the Universe was basically just Forrest Gump with Beatles songs and a lesbian subplot, which I didn't notice for the first time I saw it because I'm an idiot.
Seriously, if it's the 21st century and you're thinking about writing a sensitive coming-of-age story that takes place in the Vietnam era, kill yourself. Right now!
Let's ignore for a second that the sequence only exists to prove that Robert Zemeckis has seen Full Metal Jacket. I'll even let it slide that they somehow managed to include a war in a movie without expressing any opinion about it at all. What's unforgivable is presenting the hypocrisies of the peace movement without showing the greater ones at work within the war itself. I'm not saying that the movie needs to side with anyone on this, but it's pretty damn stupid to try to present a story that's neutral only to slyly wink towards one side of the audience and hope that no one notices.
Compare this.
You know why we a good partnership for us? Because we be watching out for one another. Like brothers and stuff.
With this. In a really stupid moment, Forrest accidentally ends up in front of the National Mall talking about his experiences in Vietnam, but his microphone gets unplugged and we hear none of this. What was the point of including this other than to make sure that no actual viewpoints about the war get expressed?
Me? I blame Tom Hanks. Ever since he stopped making movies like Big and Bachelor Party and started doing films like this in Philadelphia, important movies, he's more or less become a cheerleader for films that say that the government is always right.
This is Tom Hanks saying if you're going to pick a government to trust, why not this one?
I mean, this is the guy who's trying to make a movie about Oswald acting alone. That in and of itself is some pretty damning evidence, but just setting all that aside, when this happens...
Bub was gonna be a shrimp and boat captain, but instead he died right there by that river in Vietnam.
It's immediately followed by this.
I thought I was going back to Vietnam, but instead they decided the best way for me to fight the communists was to play ping pong.
They've somehow managed to play the war straight, champion it, and completely trivialize it at the same time. Aragon respected my intelligence more than this. Hell, Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror respected my intelligence more than this.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, you're crying all the time.
This movie was praised at the time for the scenes when Tom Hanks gets CGI'd into old newsreel footage. Now it just makes me cringe because look at their lips. They're not mashed up at all. Now, I could accept that Forrest would run into George Wallace while he was governor of Alabama, and yes, I suppose Elvis could have stopped through his hometown during his pre-fame years, but after that, it gets pretty damn stupid. Forrest gets to meet the President of the United States on 3 separate occasions, including when he gets awarded the Medal of Honor.
Where were you hit?
In the buttocks, sir.
Oh, that must be a sight. I'd kind of like to see that.
Wow. LBJ was a freak.
And after this, Forrest actually gets to meet Nixon. Do you really think he would have gotten invited to the White House after that? But the crowning moment of stupidity is the scene when he gives John Lennon the inspiration to write Imagine. This is so out of nowhere that they had to put them on the Dick Cavett show just to make any of this anywhere near likely.
In the land of China, people hardly got nothing at all.
No possessions?
And in China, they never go to church.
No religion, too?
Ah. Hard to imagine.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
Hard to believe this predates Internet song fic by at least 4 years.
Also, pretty much every run-in with a celebrity is followed by Forrest explaining in his childlike way how that person met a gruesome death.
Somebody shot that nice young president. Had himself a heart attack or something. Somebody shot him. Somebody shot his little brother, too.
If I didn't know any better, I'd swear Forrest was the angel of death. Well, I mean, I guess that does explain why he doesn't get AIDS at the end of the movie. Oop, spoilers there.
Okay. What the hell does this have to do with anything? It comes out of nowhere, it contributes nothing to the story, it's barely mentioned after it happens, and it goes on forever. From the time he leaves his house until he goes home and watches Reagan get shot, it's almost 7 minutes. 7 minutes of nothing that has anything to do with anything. We could have watched Forrest Gump, watched an entire episode of Moral Oral, and it would have contributed just as much to the story. Granted, we already wasted a lot of time watching Forrest get his shrimping business started, but at least that ties into the overall plot. This? What the hell is this?
If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with.
Let's play Compare and Contrast. Forrest keeps his head down, joins the army because someone tells him to, basically never makes a conscious decision throughout the whole story, and ends up with an assload of money.
He got me invested in some kind of fruit company.
Jenny, who takes a stand and has her own opinions, spends her time protesting the Vietnam War, gets addicted to drugs and has a string of abusive boyfriends, ends up working as a waitress and dies of not AIDS. Oh, and she was molested as a child, but the movie never makes anything out of it.
Fuck you, movie. Fuck you so hard.
There is a middle ground. Lieutenant Dan blindly follows the system until he gets screwed over, then he decides fuck the system and sinks into a hole. Then he blindly follows the system again and everything works out. So the moral is, it's good to be a robot. Except when being a robot is bad. In which case you need to be more of a robot.
Compared to this movie, the ending of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a joyous celebration of individual freedom.
What you want, baby, I got what you need.
This is the movie that foisted Haley Joel Osment onto the world in his role as Forrest Gump Jr. On the one hand, The Sixth Sense. On the other, Secondhand Lions.
So wait, Jenny basically spends 20 years as a groupie, has sex with Forrest once, and she just knows that he's the father? Isn't it more likely that the bass player from Blue Oyster Cult's his dad?
Forrest doesn't question any of this, of course. I mean, doesn't it ever strike him as odd that a relatively smart woman like Jenny would fall in love with a guy who has the intelligence of a potato?
I guess what we're supposed to take from all this is that if you're a strung-out crack whore with a bastard son, it's best just to latch on to the next retarded billionaire you find. They'll believe anything you tell them.
And there you have it. I don't think I'm being unfair when I say that the fact this movie won Best Picture says awful things about people who make movies. I guess it wouldn't bother me so much if it didn't scoop up all the Oscars that would have otherwise gone to Quentin Tarantino. Fortunately, I felt strong enough to do something about it. Legally, I can't go into detail, but not long afterward, this happened.
We happy? Vincent! We happy?
Yeah, we happy.
I'm Mr. Mendo, and this has been Mr. Mendo's Hack Attack.
As I walk through this wicked world, searching for light in the darkness of insanity, I ask myself, is all hope lost? Is there only pain and hatred and misery?
Hey, wait a second. If Haley Joel Osment got to start here,
which led to him being here, which made it possible for this to come out, that means that Forrest Gump is directly responsible for...
oh shit.